Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the SRC podcast. Joining me, Big M, as always, Double R, Mr. Robberies, and Bucky John Harris. Good evening, gentlemen. How are we?
Yeah,
Oh, good. Thanks, Amy.
tired.
Tired. One's tired and one's good. And the tired one is the one that's through to the next round. Unbelievable, these things are.
Yes, good to never in doubt, Matt. Never in doubt.
It was in doubt, don't you lie. And we'll come to that in a little bit. But before we do dive into it, we had a bit of an exclusive last week, a bit of a bonus pod as such. The one and only Double R got to speak with John Alder of the WRU. So first off, good work getting that in. For those that haven't listened to that podcast, do you want to give us a brief outline of what went down?
Yeah, there's a lot of good content out of it. Actually, it's 45 minutes, which is a long time for any sort of sit down interview. Obviously, the Anglo Welsh Cup is still on, not for next season, but for the season after with the English Championship. The playoffs are going to be staying, and I think that's probably a good thing. They're going to look at the cup format and the scheduling, so they're going to bring the season to finish earlier, but ultimately it's still going to follow the pro calendar, but the cup's going to be the main thing they're going to play around with. So yeah, that's probably the sort of the main headlines. They got a title sponsor that they're looking to bring in. No names as of yet, but that could be absolutely crucial because one, it sort of bigs up the league, but two, brings some much needed finance into the coffers as well. So yeah, plenty of positivity around it, and give it a listen if you haven't. I think it's definitely one that goes down well.
Exactly. If you haven't listened to it, it's in the normal places. You'll see it right alongside where this podcast is. You're listening to it right now. So, quarterfinal week. Four very, very tight games going deep into the second half. So we will start with one that could have swung either way in those dying moments. Cardiff against Bridgend. Now, not on TV. We didn't have a man in the ground for this game. So, I mean, I think we all back Cardiff because we all expected Cardiff win. Don't think I kind of expected it to be this tight. So 12-5 Cardiff leaving at half time, and the game finished 31-19. But a little bit of added context, Cardiff scored with an intercept in essentially was it the last play of the game or not far off the last play of the game?
It wasn't too late, but it sort of affected it in, and it's one of those ones, right, that effectively killed the game off with the time that it came. So yeah, as good as
a one-score game going into the last minutes, and together, if anyone hasn't seen the highlights, go have a look at the highlights. You'll find them on our Twitter page. You'll find them on Rob's personal Twitter page, the SRC podcast, and Reese Rugby. You can see Ben Burnell trying that over the top pass, and was it Joe Williams that literally jumps and his fingertip sort of catch to claim that ball and then run it under. If that ball goes, I don't know, an inch, maybe too higher, maybe a bit faster, then Cardiff are in major trouble. I think it was 2-3 men over, and obviously you've broken that defensive line. So not a clear-cut scoring opportunity, but definitely a scoring opportunity for them.
Yeah, so
exactly. So Rob, give us
a 9th minute of injury time it was.
According to Cardiff, they tend to have funny time ends, especially when you compare them to others. It's quite funny.
It's the age old. They start their clock at 2:30 and it just runs. So in reality, I think there was a little bit of play, but after it, you see it sometimes. They score in the 80+ second, and then they'll score in the 80+ fifth, and you go, hang on a minute. But yeah, that's all that is. They follow the actual clock rather than a referee's clock.
There we go. So, Rob, straight back to you, and thoughts on this one? Obviously, Bridgend really hurting.
Yeah, it's. Do you know what? The scoreline definitely flatters the way that Cardiff played this one. Bridgend turned up. It was good to see some good vocal crowds, sort of out this weekend. And Bridgend was certainly one of the best of those. Like you said, that last minute or bar last minute interception probably buffers the sort of the gap in terms of where Bridgend are pushing for it. I think we see that playing Bernal as a playmaker at 12 probably works better. Certainly evidently off the past few weeks. There's also a moment in a couple of probably momentum switches in this. Bernal misses 3 points at goal when the score is 24-19. I mean, you put it to a 2-point game. Cardiff start worrying about a drop goal, even though it's still early at this stage, still 20 minutes to go, just over 20 minutes. But you start worrying about things like that, the penalties, for Bridgend to sort of claw their way in. And then there was a forward pass given from Ed Howley later on in the game, and it wasn't a definite score. It wasn't like, oh, there was nobody back, but the officials pulled it back. And it's one of those ones, it probably wipes momentum more than anything else, but it certainly looks like a good scoring opportunity for Bridgend, and certainly brings them the territory that they can be dangerous with quick balls. So yeah, I think that Cardiff will be relieved at this one, and they're going to have to up their game massively for their semi-final. But Bridgend can probably be quite proud of where they've come from. They turn into a side that are getting results. In big games. Swansea, were playing well, big game, got the result. Llandovery, big game again. The manner that they took the result, against a top side who were in good form at the time. So they're ending their season not on a high, but the performance-wise, I think you can definitely see the improvement on 12 months ago. And that's ultimately what people like Scott Baldwin are going to be looking at, is it's a development league, whilst you're still retaining the community and the club sort of feel aspect of it. So yeah, I think this is a cracking example, and it's probably one of 4 games that could have been televised and done the league proud this weekend.
Oh, 100%. Every single game was amazing. And that's not just us, trying to big up this league, because we're doing that anyway. But these games, quite honestly, the quality on the show, it put a lot of people to shame who say there's not enough quality players in Wales.
Yeah.
So, John, thoughts on this one? I mean, Bridgend are technically under your remit.
Yeah, really pleased for Bridgend the way they turned up in this game. I don't know if I think we all picked Cardiff to win this one, and probably quite comfortably. So to see it going so close and Cardiff needing that last minute score just to put it to bed was brilliant. I think the Cardiff scrum went very well. I think that's something Bridgend have struggled with all season, is when they come up against the big scrums. But as they've also shown all season, when they got some space and get some quick ball, they can hurt you and with those backs. I think Benella was quality again. I think he's been a standout all season. Every time he's played, he absolutely terrorised us when they came down. He looks a very, very good player. But yeah, like Rob said, Cardiff are going to be glad they've got this one out the way. Hope it'll probably get rid of any complacency they might have now going into the semi-final. Just wake them up a little bit. That we've got to be on our game there, or someone's going to turn up and catch us napping. And against Newport, they're going to have to up it, because Newport will take them on, and Newport have got such quality as well in that back line that they're going to hurt them. So they're going to have to up. They needed that to maybe give them that kick up the arse before the semi-finals. But credit to Bridgend, they've proper made a good game out of this one, and hopefully that'll give them a lot of confidence now to go, have some time off now, come back in pre-season and think, yeah, we can compete with these big teams now, sort a few things out here and there, maybe get a bit more physical up front. We can live with these big sides in this league.
Yeah. So, I mean, one thing I do want to point out is, for anyone that genuinely hasn't seen the highlights package, Jake Thomas, I think it was his second try. The way he just takes it off his boot and just gets it in, that score is not happening. Probably 90% of players, and I'm being, pretty generous to a lot of players, but are not scoring that try. Quite incredible stuff, from the winger. So that is Bridgend done and dusted. Quick look at this squad. Haven't had any news yet on who's going or who's staying, but is there anyone that might not be playing next season because they're moving up? So names that kind of catch my eye are Tom Florence and Matt Yorworth Scott. Now, obviously, Scott is I think 25 now, and has a tight head. This is probably the time to be moving up. If you look at the Osprey stocks, I think Tom Bowler can't last forever. There's Rhys Henry and Ben Warren. Obviously, there's a lot of belief that Warren has a really high ceiling, but there's nothing to really show for that as yet. So he is one that Bridgend might be without next season. He could be in that first team squad more often for the Ospreys. And Tom Florence, he's played in the centres, he's played in the back three, and I don't think the Ospreys centre stocks are locked in quite yet. I think is a Boshoff. They sent their South African centre.
They're hoping to sign him, aren't they?
That's what we're hearing. But if that doesn't go through, and I think is Owen Watkin is still injured, there's obviously an opportunity, for the young man to go through. A couple of players, that impress. Obviously, Ryan Wilkins impresses everybody. Macaulay Rowley, or Rowley, however you want to pronounce it, has been really good. He signed for them this season. I think he came from Pontypridd, and he was in the Cardiff Junior Academy way back when. But he's looked a real prospect this season. I wouldn't be surprised, for some teams to maybe have a look at him there. So, what about you boys? Has there anyone really been standing out for you?
Yeah, do you know? I think Tom Florence is one of the academy allocation that's really stood out, and those are probably the most likely boys to then sort of work their way through. But equally, I think Ryan Wilkins is going to be the interesting one. I don't think he'll necessarily be picked up by a Welsh side, but he's obviously gone down under, during this season and sort of plied his trade. So yeah, it's one of those ones we've seen players do it before, and the likes of Carrick McDonald and all that have gone down under. There's been quite a few over the past 5-6 years that go down, play a couple of seasons down. Then sometimes it can kickstart. The championship clubs over in England are always looking at sort of talent, so it'd be interesting to sort of see what and sort of how that sort of develops around him.
So next game, second quarter final.
I was just going to say Evan Hill is another one who I thought he stood out at the start of the season, and then unfortunately got an injury just kept him out. But I think Evan Hill was looked very good at the start of the season. So he's always a big unit in that second row. The only thing with the Ospreys, they've got quite a deep wardrobe with second rows, but he's big, he's got presence, he's got a bit of aggression. So I'm looking forward to seeing him come back and get some game time as well.
Yeah, do you know, Beard moving on might open up a slot, right? I mean, you would think that they're going to want people senior in that senior team, some experience, but there's always that chance. It'd be interesting to see if he gets that breakthrough.
Yeah, they have signed the Queensland Red second row for, I'm assuming, as a direct replacement for Beard. But Ospreys do have that history of developing type 5 forwards, and you don't do it by only playing your 3-4 first choice locks. You do it by spreading that game time around and developing that way. So again, easily done. On to the second quarter final, and John, this one is for you. The only person to back Aberafan against Newport.
And against my better judgment.
Yeah. 13-12 up at half time, mind.
Yeah. So, that's when I knew we'd lost it. Because it was great, really good, entertaining game to watch. It was definitely entertaining. Aberafan started fantastically, really quickly. Nice spray it wide early. Scott Denevo coming into the line. He was outstanding all game. He was absolutely unbelievable. He felt like he was taking on Newport by himself a lot of the time. Fed it out to Felix Gilbert, scored beat the man on the outside to score in the corner. We followed that up with a lovely drive-in maul. As you've seen from the video, I managed to capture that one. One time I didn't jinx them into not scoring. But I feel like there was quite a wind in that first half that Aberafon were working with as well, and they dominated the first half. I thought the scrum was going to be in Newport's favour to start. Their first scrum, we did go back a bit and concede a penalty, but they kind of shored it up. Aberafon shored it up a bit then and got that going all right. And the driving maul was going well when they got it and man set it. But Newport were good, in fairness, at disrupting Aberafon setting the driving maul up to start with. So they had a few chances where they've gone for the corner, and like I say, the maul's been disrupted and they just didn't score. And they've put they just didn't score enough points in that first half. I know it sounds so simple when I said it last week, they need to score more points in Newport, but that's exactly what happened with the territory and possession and chances they had in the first half. They probably should have been 15, at least 15 points clear with the wind as well. And they played well enough to be. So, but it's just the finishing the chances again. And then so it was half time. I was thinking this second half now when Newport, because they're going to have their purple patch, because of course they are. It's Newport. They're at home. They're going to get on top at some point, and when they do, they're probably going to score 2 or 3 in one go. And that's kind of what happened in the second half. Even when Newport went down to 14 men, they scored a couple of tries and a couple of gifts from Aberafon again with an interception. Dunford trying to kick over the top, which has gone straight to Newport play, and he's just gone straight through the middle of all of us. But at that point, we were chasing a little bit, so we were again having to try things to get back into the game, which they did get back in at 26-20. But then Newport just you could tell that in the back they were just more clinical. They were excellent at taking the chances that came their way when they got them. I think they used the wind a lot better with the kicking game in the second half as well to keep us pinned. The substitutes come on and they tried their best as well. I thought we had a fairly strong bench to bring on, and the boys, the 2 props impressed me that came on for Aberafon. They were at some points our best attacking threat. They were having a go at everything. I mean, it was a bit strange to see Scott Dunnivo taken off mine just after an hour when he was playing so well. But I feel like the score, I don't want to say fat at Newport because that sounds unfair, but I think more the fact that we should have scored, we should have taken more chances, and we've missed 3 conversions as well. So it's one of those just a disappointing one because this is a game they could have won if they had taken their own chances and not gifted Newport points. But they can't fault the effort, and they dominated the first half, so there's a lot to take from it. The Newport fans I was sitting around there, so they were nervous. They were nervous at points. So, but Newport have done what they need to do. They've shown why they're a top 4 side and probably the form side in it. They've got to half time close. No, they've kept it to a point at half time. I thought, right, we could be second half now. It's going to come to us. We're going to have the wind, and that's what they did. They pulled away, and they couldn't really get back into it then.
Yeah, so I think it's probably fair to say Aberafon lost this game more than Newport won it because 2-3 of those tries came from simple errors or just a poor kick, and you do have to give a lot of credit to Newport because you still got to finish those opportunities off, and by God they did. So a lot of mistakes. I say a lot of mistakes. A lot of errors then from Aberafon really stopped you from kicking on in that first half and again in the second when you had opportunities. So, Rob, take us through your thoughts.
Yeah, there's probably in my mind looking at this game 2 things that have cost Aberafon, and that is execution and the discipline windows. So I mean, John was sending us the 5 meter lineouts in that first half. And they butchered 3.
Yeah, that definitely wasn't a dodgy throw that we got penalised for.
No, that
Shouting
wasn't.
to the ref, I was willing to show him on my phone. I'll have a look at that, ref. God, bang down the middle. Don't know what he was on about. Anyway.
But yeah, it summed it up though that and it probably sums up Aberhaven's day that that call goes against you. You lose 2 more on the 5 metre line. The maul is working well, but you just can't. And I'll be honest, it wasn't like Newport was stealing it in the air. It was an overthrow, or it was just completely mistimed jumps, and all in all, if you lose your set piece, you can't do anything, right? Your back's got fewer attacking platforms. You lose your territory gains because if you win a penalty, you kick the touch, you lose the ball comes back. So basically, all in all, unless Newport's shank their exit, you're losing territory on that. And the other thing is around those discipline windows. I mean, as a coach, in these sort of games, you want to come out as a balance. You want to come out equal in those 10-minute windows. If they score a penalty, you want to score a penalty. You want to try and keep with them, or at least keep it within one try. And they just didn't do that. Newport scored when they went down to 14, and Aberhaven had a man sent off, I think, on 46 and 55. So all of a sudden, you're going, right, we're down to 14, Newport score. Comes back on, another man goes off, and you can't play 20 minutes against a side like Newport with 14 men. You know what I mean? That's an entire quarter of the game, and ultimately Newport then scored again. And Newport managed those windows, right? Newport scored 3 tries when there was 14 men on the field. That's when Aberhaven had theirs off, and when Newport had a man in the bin themselves. So it's the little margins, and I think it probably sums up Aberhaven's season really. There's a lack of just execution, clinical ability at times, and just a bit maybe not sloppy, but ill-disciplined in sort of everything that they do. You can't be losing that many lineouts. And we've been praising the likes of Luke Davis recently, and you still got the likes of Smallman in there and a lot of experience. So I think Jason and I will be pleased with where the season's gone. I think again, Aberhaven are on an upwards trajectory across since they started the season, certainly, and they're in a good spot for next year. But I think you'd be massively disappointed that in their, and I'll say it, this their biggest game of the season, they haven't delivered what they should be doing on the field.
Yeah. So 40-25 in Newport's favour. The game finished 3 scores, but just by that single point, mind. So again, yeah, tough one for Aberhaven to take, but very positive for Newport. Going into the semi-finals. So have had a bit of news on Aberhaven's squad. So there's a couple of retirees. So we've got Andrew Waite and who is it? Rowan Jenkins?
Yeah, Rowan Jenkins, yeah.
So obviously neither have played massive amounts this season. I don't think Waite has played too many games, and I think
I haven't seen him a lot, no. But...
No.
And Rowan, I think he's got about 10 appearances. All starts and sub benches included. So less than half games. So he's an instrumental figure. In the squad, not just in the 15 or the 23. He's there training. He's seems to be that presence that really lifts you up. You talk about stalwart. Talk about people who lead by example, and he is definitely that sort of character.
He's been one of my favourite players for the last 10+ years, and I'm going to sound biased, but I think he's been the outstanding loosehead in the Welsh Premiership / SRC for the last 10 years. When I've seen journalists picking their teams of the season, he's usually the only one that all 3 of them would have in their squads. He's just been absolutely amazing for 10 years. So I'm gonna miss Rowan because he's been fantastic and one of my favourite players. So just wish him all the best.
You can tell you can really feel the love of John for his team and for his players.
He wasn't a big prop either. No, he's like 5'8", 5'9", 15 stone. But I've seen him buckle tight heads twice his size of him, and not many. And he can make a 40-50 meter break as well. He's got some pace, so he had a bit of everything.
Never apologize. I love hearing that, especially about props. 3 players that will be moving on to pastures now. We got, I'm going to butcher this name, Morgan Meeklem. I'm not so sure how to pronounce that one. Young back three player. No signs of where he's going at the minute. Hooker Cam Lewis, who reports are he might be heading west at Llandovery, unconfirmed. Played a few games this season, not a great deal, but you do have the likes of Luke Davis, Saul Hurley. So whilst you never want to be losing players, you got plenty of stock there. And probably the biggest one of all is Ed Dunford. He's only been there this season, but he's really coming at 10, and he's run everything. I mean, I'm just having a quick look over all the team sheets now, and
he's been really good all season.
There's 5 games.
He can be a bit hit and miss. You try things, but no, that's what you want. That's what these clubs and games are for. That's what these youngsters are having an opportunity to do. Go out there and try some stuff. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. But when it works fantastic. So he's been really good this season. So we'll miss him.
Yeah. So
do you know as well? I'm hoping it doesn't. But when you lose somebody, maybe not an experienced 10, but he's been running the fly half after the transition phase where they've lost a load of senior players around that position. What I hope it doesn't do is it doesn't, depending on who they get in, of course, doesn't set them back again. You would like to think that if they get an established 10 in or someone in that's at least as good as Dunford, if not better, then it's a difficult one, but I just hope it doesn't set back Aberavon's plans now for next season. I mean, he's not sticking around the SRC or Welsh rugby as such, so it'd be interesting to see how they sort of work around this one more than anything else.
Yeah. So I did get a couple word-ins with Jason Hyatt, and he's very, very tight-lipped, but I can quote him in saying they've got some very exciting talent coming in. So
have you heard they've signed a 10 already?
Yeah.
Sorry.
He's all well. I'm planning on having a chat with him later this month. And he's hoping to have his side for next season already confirmed by then. So I'd imagine that he's pretty confident on who he's got at the moment. So if we turn to other players that could make that step up, it's a hard one because I think some of your best players are back three players, and I've literally just spoken about one for Bridgend, and you're in the same region going to the Ospreys, who've themselves got a lot of back three talent. So, John, you tell us, a couple of the standouts and who may or may not make a step up into pro rugby.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, Scott Denevo has been outstanding all season at fullback. He's one of those X factor players. He's got that ability to just beat people, and not only beat them, but because he's so good at beating people, he draws people as well. I noticed that in the Newport game, once he'd started making a few breaks, then he would take two or three Newport players, once he got the ball, would just stop and watch him for a sec. Didn't want to commit to him, so he makes space. That's making space for other people. Then, but he's fantastic under the high ball. He's got a boot on him. He's definitely someone who looks like he's got a high enough ceiling to step up at some point to professional rugby. Ashton Evans at number 8 has been outstanding all season. He's what a player. If you need go forward, just give Ashton the ball and he'll go forward and take 3 or 4 people with him. Similar to Luke Davis at hooker, has been brilliant all season. He's an absolute tank of a hooker. Probably a highest try scorer again. And Joe Gage, I always got to mention Joe Gage because he's just the constant. He is probably your 7 out of 10 player, but it's every single game he doesn't drop below the 7 out of 10. So, and he's a great leader. Saul Hurley as well, and the hooker he's the under-20s hooker as well. He's got definitely got something about him. He lacks, I think, a little bit on the size, especially compared to Luke, who's so big. But he's definitely got something about him. He's dynamic and his darts are pretty good. So he'd be another one I look forward to keeping an eye on next year.
Yeah. So in terms of your allocation, there's two wingers.
And Corey Lewis-Jenkins, of course. Sorry, forgot about Corey. Got to mention him.
14 tries, and
Yeah, he's been
that's
fantastic.
that's no mean feat. But like I said, back three so competitive. In that Australian region. Rob, any others stand out for you?
I think is John has wrapped off a lot of them. I think Corey's probably going to be not held back, but he's going to struggle to fill those busy gaps. Scott Delnevo's definitely one for senior rugby, and it's interesting because I think this is actually his first season at fullback in senior rugby.
Yeah.
I think he's transitioned from 9 and 10, which is even more remarkable when you consider just how well he is playing. I thought the likes of Ben Gregory have stood it well this year. They've lost a lot of sort of talent around that back row. The likes of Joe Tomlin-Reeves, obviously, Andrew Waite hasn't been as present this season, so it's interesting to see how they've sort of brought Ben Gregory along, and Ashton Evans definitely deserves a shout out. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that Joe Gage was such an ever present player, Ashton Evans would be the captain of Aberavon. Yeah, he's like Mr. Aberavon. You can see the passion when he's playing all the time. He is that sort of player that when you're down and out and you're getting thumped, not that was the case on the weekend, but he'll still be carrying hard, trying something, trying to get the offload, taking a quick tap penalty, always thinking about the game. So there's a lot of good talent here. And I said it's good to see that Jason and the team have brought a lot on. I'm interested to see how the Aberavon pack goes. Obviously, Breezy's going from his forwards position as the coach to take up his role with the Welsh Rugby Union. Obviously, the likes of Andrew Waite moving on, a bit of experience there. RJ in the front row. Was the 342 games he's played. How does this sort of balance? Because we've mentioned about Hurley's size. I think you can look around and say there's quite a few smaller hookers in the league. Your Lewis Morgans, Joe Franchi's, are not big men, but it's how you utilize them. So I'm very interested to see how Aberavon sort of alter or tweak their sort of game plan, not to go away from the forwards, but do they look at developing that without risking the tries to the likes of Delnevo and so Lewis Jenkins, and maybe depending on who this 10 is that's coming in, that could sort of factor in how they want to play this.
Yeah, and I hate to quote some cliches here, but in terms of those front rowers, it's not the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of the fight in the dog, and that is very true, especially of hookers. There's you look at the under-20s, and the standout hooker was Harry Thomas, and he's like 5'10", 5'11" if he's wearing his big boy shoes. So they're not a giant breed anymore. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit to the nighttime kickoff. So, Rob, this is you. This is Ebbw Vale getting, well,
pushed all the way.
It's a hard one, for me, looking from the Quins' perspective, 24-14 up.
Yeah.
And then, what was it, 77th minute? Ebbw take a penalty. You haven't taken many penalties this season. I do have to point that out to make it a two-score game, and that is how we finished 45-35. So, 80 points. So that tells you a story in itself. But Quins going up to RGC in our wildcard round, that was hell of a result. But even though they haven't come away with a win here, I think this is even better. The fact of I know Quins went to Ebbw a few weeks ago. They were in it for large parts of the game. But you've taken it down to the last couple of minutes here, and that's something I think that Steph Thomas and the rest of the boys can be really, really proud of, because they talk about well, I know Steph said about some of the injuries they've had. Vast majority of their allocation is gone. And it has been for a while, and they've had no real tens. I mean, what was it? was it Ivan Davis who started at 10 for this game? I think this was like maybe his third or fourth game he's played at 10 this season. I know, and one of them was the week before, and before that, I'm literally going back to October to the last time he played at 10. So there's influential positions they're missing out on. I think it's 5 injuries in that half between 9 and 10 that they have. So kudos to Quins for really pushing what is the form home side. I want to say it as. So you were obviously there, Rob. So what was the experience like?
Yeah, do you know what? It was a bit of a scrappy affair. Quins were doing well to sort of slow it down at set piece, ensure that Ebervale couldn't attack off the set piece as well as they wanted to. So they've disrupted the line out quite a bit early doors, held their own in the scrum as you'd expect. But it was more the kicking game that sort of prevented Ebervale from pulling away or keeping that reeling them in earlier. And like I said, we've mentioned the issues at 10. It was 10 and 15 that caused the issues around the kicking game. Evan Lloyd, I'll be honest, had a poor game. He missed 2 penalties to touch in the second half. Even when it was a 2-score game, you're still missing them. You're really allowing Quins a positive way back into it. The positional kicking was poor, and across the back line, when it was taking it up, there was a massive gap. Quins knew Ebervale wanted to play that deep territory game, get the line out steep in Quins territory, play the maul, and sort of try and push those defensive breakdowns inside Quins own 22. But they weren't analysing the space in front of them. There was a big gap. Quins are playing too deep and nobody in the middle. They weren't chipping over the top and varying it up. Quins were doing that, and Quins were getting a chase on every single one of their kicks. Again, Ebervale weren't chasing. So it's one of those ones. It was 24-14. It was. I don't think it was looking poor for either side. I don't think Quins looked like they was going to go on and win this. I don't think Ebervale were looking like they were going to go on and lose it at that point. It was still up in the air. But I think just a bit of quality and sort of size in the end. But I think it's quite telling that Steph has complained, or not complained, but sort of highlighted the amount of injuries he's had to his squads. Ebervale had 6 returning players from injury in their 15. And I think you could see that lacked the continuity. Griff Tuff, massive boost to have him back. And he had a great game, obviously sniped his own try. But I think on Quins going forward is that they're on about those allocations and around 9-10 sort of barrier, is you need to just develop a better core squad. I'm sorry, you look at the sides that are up in that top 4. Cardiff have a heavy presence of academy players. Pontypool in 5th, heavy presence. Newport, heavy presence. Landover, hefty presence. Ebervale had 1 Dragon allocation for this game, and he was on the bench. You know what I mean? It's one of those ones. You can complain that your allocations aren't fit and stuff like that, but if you don't have that core squad around them, which Quins don't, their boys were gassed. I'll be honest. That's what cost Quins is you could see they were gassed early in the second half, and whether that is playing the physical game again and sort of having they haven't had a huge amount of games in the legs. They've played exactly the same amount of games this season as Ebervale. Obviously, they played the wild card. Ebervale played the cup as the extra fixture each. So it's little things like that make a big difference. Ebervale didn't look tired on 80. Quins looked knackered by 50. And ultimately, it's trawling through and sort of getting the results. And I think there'd be a lot to work on, but I think ultimately it's a ground out knockout victory win.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the squad, it's how the SRC is going to move. I don't think one allocating player in a 23 is something that can work going forward if the league is to develop as they want it to. I mean, I think one thing that people at Quins might be aggrieved at in terms of because it's not just the allocation boys. I know I pointed them ones out, but they had to pull a player from Division 1 to come and sit on the bench in Johan Dillon, with flanker. They literally that's how bare bones are. They're not going to the Premiership. They're not going to the Championship. They're going down into
But
Division
again,
One.
right, that's relationships for me. I'm sorry, but the majority of rugby below them has finished at this point of the season. We've seen Llandovery, another West Wales side, another Scarlets region side, and they're utilising their local clubs, Ammanford, for example, right down there. But utilise these sides around you. I mean, we've seen Pontypool permit Rodri Cole from Neath this season when we know that they've had problems at 9. So again, that is for me a club admin thing, and yes, it's difficult to try and just pull players in. It's not a case of going, "We want you, you're going to come and play for us." But I feel when you're trying to pull these players in, they've had all season. They've had 6 months of these injuries. I mean, Yori Badham and the likes and Gabe McDonald have been out for serious amount of time. You just got to get on with it and start working with teams. So it's ultimately when you're looking at what you do with your squads, this is where pulling 45 players into training regularly on a weekly basis works, because you've got boys that are playing championship rugby, but they're training with you probably once a week, say, and then they're training with their parent club on the other day of the week. So it's, for me, that's Quinn's off-field side of stuff that needs to improve, and they've been like it for a few seasons. They've had an elderly squad, be fucked. They've had an aging squad, and we've seen a lot of retirees and players up front move on, but you haven't seen many players going, "I'm stepping in there." They've signed boys like Reece Fawcett and that, up from Aberavon and the likes. Alan Thomas obviously covered a bit of 10 in and out this season. But you've got to try and bring up your own local talent. And Carmarthen's got a lot of it. I mean, Carmarthen Athletic, again, another good local side that develop talent. So it's about bringing it up and sort of how you manage that. And Quins, I don't think, have managed it very well this season.
It's an argument for another day. Oh, a
Yeah.
discussion, I will say, because still a lot,
Yeah, Mark.
still a
Fucking
lot
stay
of,
around then.
still a lot of rugby to be played in the Premiership and Championship. That's all I'm going to say.
But it's
Okay,
not my
so
fault. You need to get him fucking tanked.
dude, he's got foul mouth on him, haven't he? That's twice.
Oh, sorry, I fucked it up again. Oh, and again.
Didn't hear none of that with the John Alden interview, did we? Oh, it's the company he's with. You can see he changes. No, okay, if we do have a look at this Quinn squad and who there's potential to move up, someone who's been injured for a long time that we haven't seen in a while, Ben Williams, he is, very likely to be up. I think he'd be something like 6th choice in that back row now, so I wouldn't expect to see a great deal of him moving forward. Isaac Young, hooker, again, I haven't seen much of him this season, but he's obviously the young hooker. There's only 2 senior hookers at the Scarlet, so again, him and along with Harry Thomas from Llandovery, they'd expected to be a lot more first team. Then it's I'm trying to have a look over the squad. Lucas Ataro,
he had a really good game, in fairness. He scored a couple of tries and looked good. I'm surprised he wasn't picked back up after Scarlet's binned him off. There was a bit of talk with Ospreys, and Yori Badham, another one that we haven't seen for a while.
Yeah, well, obviously Luca been released end of last season. I think there was a few Walkman training sessions held with the Ospreys, and he was noticeable there. Same as Combia. That's where Combia got picked up, because he was registered with Quinn start of the season. Badham's in his first season of senior rugby, so I wouldn't expect anything of him. Gabe McDonald, he got injured before round 18, so 3 weeks ago. So he's one that might, centre stocks are not 100% confirmed at the Scarlets. Johnny Williams, he's very much on the fence. No one there will tell you 100% he's saying or 100% going. So it could be very much a case of Scarlets only have 112 going into next season. So he's one that might make that step up. So yeah, there's a few good boys in there. Again, we haven't had no one confirmed staying or leaving, retiring, I should say. So that's about it. I do know there's a few young players coming up into this, but their allocations, they're their own boys, but their allocation. Jake Bowen, hooker, Carwyn Leggett-Jones. I think everyone knows what that name. He's, expected to be in and around that Quinn squad. And then there's, Ocean Williams, who we've seen a little bit of. He's an athletic boy. There's another one, Sam Williams. He's a lock back row. He's another athletic boy expected to be in and around that squad next season. So that brings us on to the televised game. Llandovery against Pontypool. Now, I don't think many expected this to be as close as it was. Going into the final 5 minutes, it was our one score game yet again. Llandovery getting, Llandovery getting a couple of tries in the
going into last play.
Yes, so Llandovery getting 2 tries in the last 2-3 minutes, to make a 39-20 finish. So it looks comfortable, but it genuinely wasn't. Anyone who watched our game and doesn't know much about the grounds of the SRC teams, they would have probably thought that was a Pooler home game, because honest to God, you could hear
There's a lot there, wasn't there?
You could hear them. No, there might have only been like 2 dozen there, but you could hear them constantly throughout the entire game, and that's absolutely brilliant. That's what we want. We want these crowds to be vocal. So, John, we haven't heard from you in a while. Give us your feelings on this one.
Oh, it's good. Everyone was enjoying the piece, I think, then. Yeah, this was. I thought this was going to be the game of the weekend, actually. I didn't get to. I saw the first half complete, but then the Wi-Fi wasn't working properly, so I kind of had to catch the highlights then for the rest of it. But yeah, I think the scores flattering a little bit, but I also don't think. I also think that Llandovery were. I always felt they were in control of the game, though. Like it was.
100%.
Like they didn't look like they were ultimately going to lose the game, but. Pontypool, yeah, like I said, but the travelling support, that was fantastic. Even when they were not just hearing them, when they panning shots of the crowd, when they showed the stand at the start of the game, all you could see was Pontypool jerseys in there everywhere. So fair play to their supporters for turning up in the numbers that they did and making the noise they did. That's what we want to see. Yeah, this is job done for Llandovery, man. You know what you're going to get when Pontypool come down. You're going to get tested up front. I thought the Llandovery scrum went really well. I think they'll be pleased with that, because you're going to get a test against Pontypool. Pontypool's big carriers made an impact for them. Morgan Allen, as always, and I forget their number 6's name. I don't know if someone can fill me in on that.
Mikey Herbert, is it? Or you on about Llandovery?
No, for Pontypool, yeah, but not Mikey Herbert.
Scott Matthews.
God, that's the one. I knew it wasn't Mikey Herbert, but yeah, he was outstanding as well. But Llandovery, you can tell they've just got that little bit of extra class in behind when, like, especially on turnover ball, they were so lethal when and quick. As soon as something spilled their way, it was through the hands, a quick draw and give, and they were gone and scoring tries. Great advert again, though, for the league. Love seeing these two sides play. I think Llandovery they'll be gutted they haven't got a home semi-final, because I think they're so tough to beat at Church Bank. But they're still going to be tough to beat anyway. They just know how to win knockout games. At the moment, it's just what they seem to do. So a great game. Well done to Llandovery they've done what they needed to do. I don't think they were. It sounds harsh on Pontypool because they played their part in this game, but I just felt Llandovery. They just felt to me like they were just had control of this game, and they weren't quite going to let. They weren't going to let that slip ultimately. And bit of a flattering score, but great game, great crowd, brilliant.
Yeah. So one thing I do want to comment on this one, and this is no disrespect to Sam Potter or George McDonald, but what a difference it is watching Lee Rees and Johan Hughes at halfback.
Oh yeah.
Obviously they are the regulars, but we had the Bridgend game a fortnight ago, live on S4C Bedrec, and comparing the two is apples and oranges. There's such a difference in class, and there's an age factor and a massive experience factor, especially when you talk about Lee Reese. He's been there, done it for years and years. So, Rob, thoughts on this one, my friend?
Yeah, I think it's what held Pontypool back was their inability to convert opportunities. I think that was the story of the day. Is Llandovery spent a lot of that first half mainly cutting through Llandovery, but getting turned over and being spoiled at the breakdown. So that's something that Llandovery are going to want to change ahead of this sort of weekend. But ultimately, I think that when it came to them being in the 22, they were clinical. You could see that experience. Scott Matthews was in front of the ball, but he had 1 foot in front of the ball for Connor Chapman's try late on. So that was correctly disallowed. But you sort of feel that was the final straw. They needed to score there. It was a 2-score game. Obviously, it gets disallowed, back to a 2-score game. And if anything, it's sort of the good thing about having a good crowd is it gets behind you. But the bad thing about it is when you have a moment like that, it's euphoria and it's the belief that your side are coming back into it. And then it's like scythed out from underneath you. And it kills sides with good support. Because it's dead and it's like the atmosphere in the ground because the drovers have been the same all season. They've had fuck all there, man. Even for the cup final, there was no shouting, no back in their side, even when they were winning comfortably on 60 minutes. It was all last 5 minutes sort of thing. And you could see the same. It's terrific to see another game, another away following. Another away following, as we mentioned, Bridgend, getting behind their side and being the more vocal team. And ultimately, it's one of those ones. It probably did warrant a 2-score game because of Pontypool, in reality, didn't make and take enough chances to sort of get in this game for long periods. But yeah, I think they'll be wanting to kick on now next season. But like I said, Llandovery will be. I think Llandovery and Newport for me are the two sides. It sounds ridiculous, but they're the two favourites at the moment based off form and results.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that stood out a little bit, and I know we spoke about it last week going into the quarters, which teams did what with their final games, how Cardiff, Ebbw Vale and Llandovery sort of not mass rotations, but they didn't, play their first 15 consecutively for those last couple of games. And, it kind of shows, in these results, you take out that final flurry, you take out the last 2-3 minutes in the Cardiff game, in the Ebbw Vale game, in the Llandovery game, and they are 1-score games that could go either way. And then if you look at Newport, they're the one team that did keep their main squad together for these last couple of weeks, and nice comfortable from 60 odd minutes victory coming through into the semis. So I'm not going to argue that Llandovery probably a form side. I mean, I still can't get over that Bridgend result. I'm still struggling to see how they lost that game, but it is what it is. It's done. It's over. So, one little surprise we did have when the squad was announced: Ben Lueng on the bench. Haven't seen that name in a very long time, so good to welcome him back into the top level of Welsh rugby. So that does mean that Pontypool have exited the competition. And like we've done with the rest of the team, we've spoken about players that could make the step up and might not be there next season. I think the main one is obviously someone who's already gone in Hugh Anderson. I don't expect him to be anywhere near Pontypool, unless for whatever reason he gets a big injury. Fingers crossed that he doesn't. Dylan Kelleher-Griffiths kind of stepped up.
Yeah, he's already transitioning, and he.
Yeah. So again, that's another one we're probably unlikely to see. I think Sam Scarf, even though we haven't seen a great deal of him, he's probably the only other one that
Morgan Lloyd. I feel for Morgan Lloyd because I feel he's a better scrum half than Shea Hope, but I feel he's a season behind, and obviously the Dragons are going to put time into him. But this is where Pontypool's going to be interesting. I think they need to recruit a 9. But it's a lot of it. We just mentioned a lot of their top performing players. I think Joel Mahoney in midfield's another one. Played in the Dragons Select, sort of team at the start of the season. It'd be interesting to see if he can push on now and become a top class player in sort of the next 12 months. But I'm interested to see how Pontypool manage their allocation because they've got a lot of allocated players. But as you say, the likes of Hugh Anderson have now moved. Morgan Lloyd has already been travelling reserve and made his pro debut. Sam Scarf, similar position, and Dylan KG is, I think he's fully transitioned. I think he's bare minimum when you include he's going to finish the season now with the Dragons, all this sort of pre-season stuff. I think he'll be a rarity for Pontypool to have next season. So, yeah, it's exciting times. It's good to see that so many of the players that have been playing week in, week out with Pontypool are stepping up.
Yeah. Harry Ford, I don't know if you mentioned him. He's someone that, again, he's probably already half transitioned. We did see him in this quarterfinal against Llandovry, but he's still a kid himself. By all rights, given the way that we're setting this up, he probably shouldn't be, with the Dragons as much. But just the way Welsh rugby is, he's in that Dragon setup. So, John, do you have anything to add? John? There he is.
No, yes, I'm still here. No, I think the main standout from me from a Llandovry point was just Lee Reesey, and he just saw, as we've said, he's just a level above, but he's not going to be stepping up anytime soon. It's too experienced for that now, isn't he? But
well, what was it 66th game? I think it was something like that.
So no, I haven't got too much to add. I think you boys have pretty much covered those boys below.
Happy days. So we are more than halfway through. I do have to say that we're coming up to the hour mark quite quick. We have spent a lot of time on these games. Rightly so, mind. So if you have made it this far, thank you. Please like, share, subscribe, do your thing, comment, share with a friend. You know the works by now, or if you don't know the works from now, do everything I just said. That'd be great. So on to the semi-finals, and I'm going to jump into the future a little bit. So I'm going to go to the Sunday where we have Cardiff against Newport. Why are both games not televised? This kills me. It was bad enough the quarterfinals, but the semis surely. But we do get one. I can't have one. So I have managed to get comments from the coaches, so I'll run through them pretty quickly. I say pretty quickly. We know Ty likes a good essay, and we love him for it. So Dan Fisher Cardiff, happy to get the win against Bridgend. It's a scrappy game. The boys done well to come away with a win. We look forward to another tough game Sunday against Newport. We always have good, hard, close games against them, and I'm expecting nothing less come Sunday. The boys' efforts against Bridgend was excellent, and we know we need to be at that level and more come Sunday. Also mentioned there was well over 1,000 there for Cardiff Bridgend, so nice to hear that. Tyrone Morris of Newport. Really pleased with the quarterfinal result against Aberafan. Although it was a nice sunny day, considerable wind we were playing against first half. Made a few errors, allowed Aberafan to build pressure. Going in 13-12, fairly pleased because of that wind. Knew in the second half, we should be able to apply that pressure ourselves. Discipline probably let us down a little, so that's something we're going to look at this week. 3 yellow cards, but did manage to score 3 tries, went down to 14 men. There's some great individual work from Di Richards and, Jack Lloyd, who was man of the match again. So, in general, 40 points against Aberafan. You've got to be pleased, but, plenty to work on going to Cardiff. We've had some absolute corkers over the last couple of seasons against Cardiff, and they are a really well-coached team with some great youngsters coming through, particularly in the back line. So we know we're going to be up against it down Cap, but we've gone there already this season and turned them over on their own patch. So there's no reason why we should feel we can't be doing that again. So those are the coach's comments. John, you've already chimed in, so go right ahead, my friend.
Oh, this going to be a good one, isn't it? Local derby, 2 cities, Cardiff, Newport. Oh, I would love to go to this one if I could. To be honest, you could make a nice day of Cardiff, couldn't you, watching this? Before Newport come up with the result of the season in actually being able to beat Aberafan, I probably would have gone for Cardiff at home to take this one because Cardiff, they've been brilliant all season, especially at home. I don't know. Something's telling me. I'm sorry for everyone this week. The Dragon Bet have not got any prices up for the semi-finals this week, so I can't inform anyone. But I would assume Cardiff would probably be the slight favourites for this one with the bookies being the home team and finishing top of the league. Did they finish top of the league? That wasn't Everfield, was it? It was Cardiff. It was Cardiff, wasn't it?
It was never Everville.
This and especially on that fast pitch Cardiff got as well, with the weather going to be so nice. This is going to be a fast game, and I think that's going to suit Newport. So I think I might have to go for Newport on this one. I didn't think I would, but it's going to be close though. This one is going to, I think when you've got all the top four sides coming together now, nobody's going to be gassed going into the last 10 minutes of it. These are all teams that are going to go until the end. I don't think anyone's going to outlast anyone. So again, this is going to be last 10, 5 minutes, even maybe with a score in a balance. Who's going to come down to a moment and who's going to take it? But for me, I'm going to go for a away win on this one. I'm going to go for Newport to snatch it. It's going to be a one-score game, I think.
That's a way to start it, and I'm going to be honest, I am teetering to join you, but I'm going to hear from Rob first. Can he sway me towards the Cardiff side?
Do you know what? I think Cardiff finished top, and Cardiff have had a nice settled squad. I think they've got the likes of Bowen back, Elijah Evans, Stefan Manuel in midfield, Joe Derby Cross is sort of scoring nicely. They've settled their sort of squad back now since the under-20s. But not that I think they've panicked, but they haven't controlled the games, especially in the second halves, how they wanted to. They did it against Llandovery down there, where it became a bit manic, and all of a sudden Llandovery picked the win up. And I think this will follow the same pattern as that game. I'm thinking something along the lines of 40-35 to Newport. I think at the moment Newport are controlling games. They're putting 80 minutes together after 80 minutes after 80 minutes. They've done that 3 or 4 times in a row now. With Cardiff are not controlling these games. They didn't against Llandovery. They didn't against Bridgend. I mean, I'm not saying that Bridgend didn't do well against them, but they didn't run away with it at home with this settled squad. So whether they're a bit more bedded in now, may help them out here. And obviously they're fighting for a home final, right? If Cardiff win, the finals at Cap. But yeah, at the moment, and I've already mentioned about Newport and Llandovery being perhaps favourites. At the moment, I'm thinking Newport in this one.
There we go. So nothing is going to sway from a clean sweep in this one. Something does need to be pointed out. Obviously we've had the team sheets since last pod. Cardiff changed 10 through 15 with Stefan Manuel stepping into that 10 shirt for I think like the second or third time this season. I think that is going to be key. I'm back in Newport because I just like the rest of you boys, I do feel they've probably got that a little bit too much, and they have got that better run of form at the moment. But if when our team sheet is announced and Harry Wild starts at 10 and Emmanuel shifts over to 12 instead of Jason Harries, it brings our game so much more into the balance, on paper at least. It does make you start thinking, oh, have I made the right choice here? So clean sweep for Newport in this one. It's going to be Newport, one team in the final already. So the other semi-final is going to be the Saturday kickoff, 12:15, confirmed, Eugene Cross Park. Ebbw Vale against Llandovery for the fourth time, this season. So the first 2 games were in the league and started the rounds 4 and 5, something like that. And Ebbw done the double. Happy days. The win up at Churchbank did take a last-minute penalty. But regardless, they got that win. Third game, SRC Cup final. Everything on the line. Again, up at Church Bank. And I don't want to be mean, but I just want to, it seemed like everyone were anonymous. That game, we spoke about big occasion, maybe getting the better of them, or, final history, etc., etc. But 39-7, that game was. And John, I think me and you we're gonna take a back step here, and we're gonna let Rob really run his feelings and let us know how badly we're gonna lose this game.
I think the key part is if we look at the SRC Cup final, obviously that's been the most recent result. Is Llandovery were at full tilt at Church Bank, and I think obviously the artificial pitch massively favours them there. But I think you look at the Ebervale squad, they lost Dom Franchi to injury early doors. They were missing the likes of Ethan Phillips in midfield as well at the time. So they go down to bare bones. Griff Tuff is back now. Obviously they had John Evans on the bench then, but he only played 2 minutes before doing his ACL. So they were massively struggling with injuries at that time. And at the moment, that's tilted back on its head. Obviously, Ethan's back playing. They've got Ryan Gardner back, Dylan and Curtis in the second row. Griff's back at 9, Evans back at 10. So it's a full squad again. I think the only player we may be missing really out of the first 15 is going to be Harry Rees-Weldon, who I think will be in South Africa following his try-scoring debut the other week for the Dragons. I think that'll keep him out. But I think it also massively helps Ebervale on their own turf. Was it 13 games, if I'm right, this season? It might be 12. Looking at it, and it's that sort of the grass being at home makes a hell of a difference. The set piece seems to work a lot better there, and that's something that's, even though they scored a rolling more with Joe Franchi in the final, Llandovery largely stopped. I don't think it'll be as easy to stop. It'll be a large crowd again. I mean, it was 4 figures of Ebervale supporters at the cup final, but it'll be similar this sort of Saturday. Obviously, it'll be on TV as well. It'll be on the S4C main channel this week, which is always nice to see. Bit of an unusual one, seeing an earlier kickoff rather than a delayed one, which is something nice. But yeah, I think there's a lot to this. I think Ebervale need to watch the breakdown. I think Ocean Davis and Stuart Worrell will be a 6 and 7. And I think it's how they manage the contact area and the collisions and sort of making sure that Griff has enough time at 9 to deal with clean ball and sort of do they look at an offload game to sort of combat Llandovery's breakdown prowess. I think the power game is going to be well matched. Llandovery do probably edge the weaponry behind. And it'd be interesting to see how many Scarlets they get in that back line. They've tweaked a few back and forth recently, and obviously the last time they played, it was the likes of Jack Davis playing. He's obviously a massive feature, and I think the URC fixtures could be crucial in all of this as well. So it'll be a mammoth tussle, but I feel that just at the moment, you look at the home advantage and what that's meant for Ebervale this season, and the fact we're playing on grass and who they've got available and fit again. And I think Ebervale take this one.
Well, you were always going to back up Will. No one's going to try and convince anybody anything different. In terms of those Scarlet boys expected, there's only 3 that they're expecting to have, which are the same 3 that was in that quarterfinal, which is Jack Davis, Morgan Jones, and Ed Scragg. And again, that is dependent on what is going on down in South Africa. Obviously, I believe the Scarlets boys have left today. A few of the other squads have left at different times as what is, befitting to them. So I do think if this game is going to be won by Llandovery, when this game is won by Llandovery, I should say, it is going to be because of that attacking game, that offloading game, which we saw was rife against Pontypool. They just couldn't live with it. They really couldn't. The offloads were going in left, right, and centre, and probably forced it a little bit too much. But again, like we said, that rotation effect. These boys have had that game back together. They should probably be a little more back into the swing of things of when to make that pass, when to not try it, etc., etc. And for me, that is, where Llandovery will win it on the scoreboard, where they will win in defence, is, like you said, that rolling maul. That is such a weapon. What was it? Franchi's between the league and cup, 25 tries. Ian Morris into double figures himself. A good few penalty tries in it, and not to mention the scores that have come a phase or two after the maul as well. It is, got about 70% of your tries have got to be attributed to that, driving maul, not necessarily coming directly from it, but attributed to it. So that is the big one. That is what needs to be stopped. Like you said, they managed to do it in the cup final, but doing it at Eugene Cross in front of the home faithful, who will all be there. Not just the traveling ones, not the ones lucky enough to be able to leave and have that extra hours or so travel either side of a game. So it's going to be a hell of a game regardless. But for me, I think Ed Scragg is going to be a focal point. He's just been released from the Scarlets. There's no news on him having a contract anywhere professionally or even semi-professionally. He's got the cameras on him. This is the game against what is the best pack in the league, attacking pack in the league. If you're going to make a difference and make a name for yourself or show that, this is who you are, this is the game you're going to want to do it in. So Llandovery for me, it's always going to be Llandovery all the way through into next season and probably the next after that. So, John, you're the last one. You're the only neutral as such.
Oh. I don't know. I'm back and forth on this one. The whole time before Rob started talking, I was like, I think I'm going to go with Llandovery on this one. And then the more I'm thinking about that Aberville home advantage, the more I'm thinking, how can I bet against Aberville and the shield holders at Eugene Cross? So great. I'm just really looking forward to these semi-finals. I think it's fantastic to see these big four sides just going to go at each other, because they have been the four best sides in the league for the last 2 seasons now. Pontypool getting close to sticking their nose into it, making it a top 5, but it is still a top 4 in this league, and to see them all just going to be going at it now in the semi-finals is fantastic, and I'm thoroughly looking forward to catching these games. I'm tending to lean towards Llandovery because I think that they're strong enough to match them up front. And as you boys have said, I think they've just got that little extra behind. They're so lethal. And again, they know how to win knockout rugby games. They know how to win cups. They know how to win playoffs. And as I showed in the cup final, and even though Aberville have done a double over, and when it comes to a cup game and a knockout game, they weren't in it. But Aberville haven't lost a single game all season up there.
Oh, you're back and forth, John. Pick, man.
How would you bet against?
Is this when he goes with Aberavon?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the crowd's going to make a big difference, because no offense to Llandovery, but they don't get a big crowd at their own ground. So this is going to be very much a one-sided crowd. So you've got to imagine that's going to feed into Aberville. And that driving maul is such an attacking weapon. But in that cup final, Llandovery figured out how to stop it. So if they can do that again, I can see them having too much. But I don't know. I really don't. So I'm going to stick with my original thought otherwise I'll just keep going back and forth, and I'm just going to go Llandovery ever so slightly Llandovery, but I could easily see it going the other way. But if I've got to pick one, I'm knockout rugby, the defending champions, the cup winners. I've got to go for them in this kind of game.
Happy days. Thank you, John. And that brings us to the end of this week. Just shy of an hour 15. So if you have made it this far,
well done, you.
What's wrong with you? Nah, only joking. Thank you so much. Thank you, boys, for joining me. Look forward to doing this all again and reviewing, a Llandovery Newport final. Sorry, Rob, I had to do it. No, thank you everyone for listening. Like, share, subscribe, follow. As you know, thank you boys for joining me, and we'll do this all again next week as we do discuss these semi-finals. Probably not going to hit the hour 15 mark next week, so be thankful for that one. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, boys. Bye.
Cheers up.
Good night, everyone.